All right, story time. Hit me with the story.
It's not so much of a story as it is a disappointing purchase.
Oh no.
It's a Odie disappointing purchase time. So,
oh no.
I'm a big fan of cooking.
Yep.
And one of the things that I really enjoy cooking sometimes is breakfast food.
Yep.
And I don't know about you, but I struggle when I cook my eggs.
Yep.
When I crack them in the pan, they always I live in an apartment, so like my stove is uneven. So it the egg just slides to one side, and then I have this like really long, thin egg.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Because everybody deals with that. So I bought one of those little like egg ringy things that you put in the pan, you crack the egg, you put it in the ring. It's supposed to make it a perfect circle.
Yep.
Yeah. So look, not a lot of instructions to these, but it simply said like make sure you lightly grease the pan and you lightly grease the ring.
Yep.
Right? Like common sense.
That's
so
it.
I did that. Do you want to know what shape my fucking egg came out?
No.
The same shape it always does. It literally went under the ring and started to slide out from underneath it. And I ended up with the same egg. But on top of that, it stuck to the ring. So when I pulled the ring up, it just had bits of egg. My egg looks like somebody shot it and then stretched it out.
Wow. I mean, okay, so those do work, but you have to have a flat pan.
My pan is flat.
I don't know why your egg is rolling to one side of your pan. Then it's obviously convex.
My stove is uneven.
Yeah. Okay. So you need to fix your stove, and then all of your problems would be solved. I love how there's legs on the bottom of the stove. There's adjustable legs, Odie. Odie.
Kevin.
There are adjustable legs on the bottom of every stove I've ever seen.
There is.
Okay.
But I live in an apartment.
So?
I don't know. That's what people are supposed to say when there's like fixes in America in an apartment. You're supposed to go, I live in an apartment.
You're supposed to call
you can't do anything about it, Kevin.
To come over to pick up the stove to adjust the leg for you? Like, what are you talking about?
I put that request in and then they never show up because that's American landlords.
Yeah, so you're just going to have to do it anyway. I love that your solution to uneven stove was egg ring. Like, this obviously will defeat the gravity at work here.
I thought so, Kevin.
Wow.
Also, real quick, because I
regard you as being a smart person like most of the time. I have stupid moments. Yeah, not all the time. I have stupid moments.
Yeah, I know.
But like most of the time, I'm like, yeah, Odie's. They're a very smart person. And
not this time.
Not this time. No. Everybody has stupid moments, I guess. You know. I mean that does happen.
Yeah.
Dude.
One other thing I want to show you real quick at the top because I know you're a fan of horror.
Okay.
You know I love the G Fuel.
Mm-hmm.
So for Halloween, they released Chucky, Freddy, and Jason G Fuel cans.
Limited edition, baby. You gotta buy them now. They're never gonna.
I got the Chucky flavor because it's blood orange.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of blood orange.
I'm just so like. We'll get into this on the podcast. Hold on, I have a story for you real quick. I don't know if you saw my Instagram story, but it tells a story of a man attempting to make pizza last night at a party.
I saw the leaf blower bonfire.
Oh, that was sick. Yeah, dude, I met the most interesting dude last night. His name's Patrick, and he sails all around the world on private yachts, and like is just a cool dude. And then he was just sitting there by the fire, chilling with this giant like. Other dudes had been playing around with a leaf blower earlier on in the it was like guys playing with matchbox cars. Like every guy had to do it at least once. You know, we were like, you put the leaf blower on the fire. I don't know why that was so amazing to me, but I've never seen it done before last night. And then like he came out and instead of like doing the I'm going to be super entertained and like stand in different corners of the fire and blow the leaf blower at, he just sat down and grabbed the leaf blower and then when it needed be done, he just lifted it up. And I was like, I like you. You're a good dude. You're fun.
Innovative.
And then we found out like we're the same age and know a bunch of the same people and stuff, which was great. But
of course.
Yeah, of course. But so last night I go over, my parents are like, hey, why don't you go up to this party? It's like a local like brewery and a distillery owner, like big business guy up here. And we've known him for a long time. And we go to his house. First off, beautiful house, like blew my mind how nice it was and how much thought he had put into like why the sun hits different angles in different rooms. I'm like, you're great. Like I was just having such a great time being around people. I did not know. I don't even know if there was a memo, but all of a sudden out of nowhere, his wife is just like, we're all making pizzas. And like, and I was like at first, like, I was just like, all right, she's had a couple glasses of wine. Who knows what's going to happen here? But legitimately within like 2 minutes, everybody had assembled the ingredients for making pizzas on the island in this kitchen. Like,
just there?
Yeah, like somebody
had the ingredients.
Like it was like everybody knew, you know? And I felt grateful just to be along for the ride, right? But like within like 2 minutes, like someone had chopped up peppers and someone had grabbed the mushrooms and like they were just like, we're all making pizzas. And I was like, all right, sweet. I used to work at a pizza place, so I knew how to make the dough really well. So my pizza, like, by the time I got done with it, which didn't take too long, I was able to help other people. It was just, like, a lot of fun. But then, like, I didn't know the one thing that I didn't, like, account for the size of the oven we were putting it in. In my mind, I just assumed that this guy had built a brick oven for pizza.
A giant pizza oven.
Yeah. It was not. It was not. It was equally impressive. It was like a little jet engine brick oven pizza thing.
Oh, I've seen those.
Yeah, it was great. It was great,
like
except
40 seconds.
Except no one gave us parameters on what size to make the pizza, so my pizza got stuck to the sides and then got pulled out and looked like a figure 8.
That's amazing.
It was so funny. I was just like, well, you know, I thought I was a good pizza maker until this hit the oven, but I guess that's where you find out.
I think it's oven fault.
It is, but at the same time, I'm just gonna take ownership. I didn't ask. I just assumed that I was gonna have all the space in the world in this
18-inch pizza.
Yeah, well, I
like,
assumed I was
stuffed
gonna
crust.
I'm like, this house is huge. There's like 4 bedroom. Like, I'm like, they've got to have a real pizza oven here, but it was a real pizza oven. It was just small. Yeah, it was just really funny how all the pizzas kept coming back in with like minor defects from us not knowing all the parameters of making pizza.
Of course. That's funny.
It was so great. Oh, you want to start the podcast?
I do.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Theme music here. Don't talk for like 30 seconds. There's going to be theme music here. But, we never talk during the theme music.
I know. I'm not
Stop talking during the theme music, Odie.
I'm not.
Odie!
You're doing it.
I'm
not doing anything.
Odie, I have to start the theme music over right now. All right, ready to clap?
Yeah.
All right, ready? 3, 2, 1. Yeah, we did it. I'm awake. I love that we clap by slapping our faces. That wakes me up every time. Speaking.
Wow, I legit just thought I lost my contact. I don't even
damn.
have contacts in.
Speaking of getting slapped in the face, welcome back to the Unpop Podcast. It's a constant yes and of podcastery, hosted by myself, El Capitan, todo lo siempre, your captain, Kevin, minor, he, him, accompanied by...
Odie Matthews, the chef, they, them.
Woo!
And also, I'm really glad that we're on a hot streak of never missing an episode of this podcast.
Oh, me too.
This is great.
We have never missed. It's so great, man. I've been recording. I've been uploading. We did a really great episode on what's going on over in Israel right now. Covered all the bases.
Another good one about SpaceX.
I think we
and
solved
Elon.
the conflict.
Yeah, I think so.
Yep, we did the episode on exactly how Elon Musk should handle SpaceX and X, right?
And we talked about the Trump trials.
We talked about the Trump trials. Yes, we got really into the Trump trials. That was actually probably the most prolific episode I think we've ever recorded.
Yeah, that was a crazy month of recording. But now we're back to our normal content.
Normal content.
Here
we are. Yep. I love it.
Like we never left.
We
didn't.
I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna need a little bit of your assistance this morning. I'm coming off of. I forgot that when you do something as big as like a musical that's selling out a bunch, you come off of that and you get like post-show blues. You know, like how anytime you do anything big, anytime you accomplish something, like when you come off of that high of competing, like what if you're competing at a high level, if you're playing in a concert, if you like you come off of that and you kind of like there's like a slump that you go through and it's hard to pick the energy back up, and I'm in that phase because we just got done doing that Addams Family musical, which was banger. Like what an amazing experience that I would never do again in my life. No, for real though, it was really good. You. It was really good, but I don't think that I would do it again unless I was in like a paid environment, like doing equity acting, because it was,
your schedule was crazy.
The schedule was more than what was advertised, so it ended up being too much. Which wasn't like, I don't want to take away from it. It was an amazing thing, and the fact that we could pull it off, and like hundreds of people were leaving every night and just going, oh my God, it was so great. And like all these little Wednesdays are coming up and taking pictures with us and the family. And I was able to like talk to some kids who are interested in theater but didn't know how to get into it. Like the way that like you impact so many lives just by doing a thing with good intention is so great. And that's like that's my favorite part about doing anything artistic or creative, is not so much that I was able to create, because that's like inherent. That's why I'm doing it. That's why you start, right? Like, because you're like, I want to do a thing. But like when you finish, there's the I want to say like collateral positive consequence of you've created a positive impact that people can embrace and like really enjoy and take things away from. So I'm coming off of that, and I've been in a slump all week. Like I didn't go to the gym. I just started going back to training yesterday. I went to Muay Thai, got punched in the face. It was great. Needed that. But I've been like slowly just moving. I've got my little yoga corner in my new room set up over here. Like just, it's big, crazy transitions this month. And now I'm like, all right, well, how do we get back to whatever our new routine is, but also calling it normal,
Yeah, new routines seem to be common. Like, especially given the fact that it's in the year, it's weird to adjust to a new schedule knowing that the year's almost over.
Yeah.
For me personally, at least.
Yeah, big time.
With the new schedule of my job and my workflow, like, it's been weird adjusting from being able to wake up whenever and work whenever to now being like, oh, I have to get up at this time and I have to be here at this time. It's weird.
Yeah, you have obligations now.
I don't have freedom anymore with my work. Being a freelancer, I could do whatever I want whenever I want. But now, being a salary person again.
Yep, you're in the office.
But, well, my office is everywhere still, which is lucky.
Salary is that bad. I mean,
it's only bad because
it's bad in some cases, but
like next week I'm in Vegas.
Yeah,
and I'm vlogging the entire trip. Well, our days start at like 9 a.m. and they go until like 10 p.m. And I'm vlogging.
Well, okay, so with
12 hours.
Yeah.
When I'm only getting paid for 8, it's like,
oh, so you work for Hollywood
bummer.
Then?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. Oh, so you're a creative.
I'm going on strike.
Got it. But do you get per diem? Like, do they pay for stuff for you? Not to get too into it. I just wanted to ask because, like, if you're going to be out there and you're filming all day, you're technically working. Like, do you get per diem?
The only thing I get is food, which is like a basically per diem.
That's
like if we go out,
that's
like I'm with. Because it's like, for those of you that don't know, in the period that because you know what? This has happened since the last time we recorded, which obviously was last week, but,
So much has happened.
Yeah, so much has happened.
Since last week.
Since the last episode, which was last week, I assume.
Obviously.
I started working as the director of social media and marketing for a cannabis company.
Woo!
And so this Vegas trip is like, there's this big cannabis con going on in Las Vegas where like all these vendors and all these people come in and whatnot. So it's 2 brothers, their best friend, and I call them the big 3 because they basically call the shots, and I work for like the main brother, and then they have 2 silent owners. So like everybody is going on this trip to Vegas. So I'm actually pretty excited though because I've never been to Vegas. Like I've been to the airport, but I've never been on the strip.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. And at the end of the day, like, I'm not the biggest fan of working more than 40 hours a week. I'm not the biggest fan of working any hours a week. I mean, if I had it my way, like, I would just get a paycheck every week and I could just do whatever I wanted. Like, I think that'd be great. But I do love this job a lot. So, I mean,
well, good.
At the end, you know what I mean? Like, yes, it's work, but is it really work if I'm doing what I love?
No, it's not.
And I get to go to free parties in Vegas.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, literally, we're going to this party. It's called, like, it's like the end of the event party. And it's like only, according to the people that told me it's like VIP only, but we got the hookup kind of thing. So like,
they're telling everybody that.
Yeah, pretty much. But like,
I mean, we are going only, to like, but I'll let you in, bro.
We're going to like parties and events like every night. Like there is like all different types of people are hosting. So I feel like it's a hangover situation. You know, like I'm ready.
Oh, dude,
I'm ready to get
you're
lost.
Gonna have a great time.
Yeah,
that'll be great. Going along with the salary thing, like I think in my 20s I hated the idea of working salary, like working a day job, right? Like working a 9 to 5, working for a corporate. If you had told me like 10 years ago that I'd be working, a little more than 10, probably like 12. If you told me 12 years ago that I'd be working for corporate America, I would have been like, fuck you, dude, get out of here. Like,
absolutely,
get out of my fucking face. There's no way. But now that I'm there, and I think I found the right position. I'm people facing. I work with people every day. I solve problems for people every day. I think now that I've found myself there, and engaging in a meaningful way for me, I'm like, oh, I don't know why I hated on this. There's actually a multitude of jobs that exist in this area that would probably appeal to me. I just I was kind of closed-minded about it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I get that. Like, I worked for corporate America for 7 years.
Yeah.
Before, because I wouldn't call this job corporate America by any stretch. But if you told me when I was signing, God, they better not. It's cannabis. But if you told me that when I was signing my papers to join the Marine Corps, 12 years ago, speaking of 12 years ago, and you had been like, hey, by the time you get out of the Marine Corps, you're going to be working for corporate America. I've been like, absolutely not, unless the military is corporate America.
I mean, it is the military-industrial complex, so yes.
Just a little.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I don't mind salary. Like, I've been almost every position I've had since, I mean, the military is obviously salary, and then I only held one position at the environmental company that was hourly. So most of my life outside of high school, like adult jobs, have been salary. And I honestly, I like salary more than hourly because I know exactly how much my paychecks are going to be.
Yeah, same.
And most of the time, I would say being salary, I don't really put in over 40 hours. And even with this job, like, I was working on Thanksgiving just because, like, it's not really, like, editing the podcast for that company, like, is not work. No. It's fun.
Yeah.
So, like, I was working when I definitely wasn't getting paid. So I don't really care.
Yeah.
I just like what I do.
Yeah. Yeah, I like being able to budget. There's a lot of, like, benefits to the work.
Pros and cons.
Yeah, pros and cons for sure. I mean, but ultimately.
Oh, question for you.
Yeah.
Speaking of pros and cons and corporate America.
Yes.
And America.
Yes.
Did you do any Black Friday shopping?
I did.
I did too. What did you get?
I
do
do
too,
it
every
online.
Me too.
Yep.
Twins.
Yep, twins. I do it online. I did have to go to Target on Black Friday to get light bulbs.
Oh yeah.
Which luckily were on sale for Black Friday, so why not? I mean,
hey.
Yeah, who would have thought? Well, I had like a lighting issue, but so what I bought this year, I needed another fake fur coat because that's who I am.
Ah, yes.
That's who I am as a person, man.
Love it. Dude, I love it.
Yep. I've got another fake fur coat come in. And then, what was the other thing I bought? I only bought one other thing. I forget what it was. But it was something. I think it's because it's something I needed and not something I wanted. And I was just like, I get this. Like, this is for me.
I feel the buying things that you need not or want not need. My whole Black Friday shopping this year was just once.
Yeah. Well, that coat is like my Christmas present to me, right? Because I was trying to think like, oh well, I buy a lot of stuff. I'm one of those people like I asked how many people work at the bagel shop because I'm gonna get them all small gifts. I'm gonna bring in something to the office for all the people I work with. Like I'm the type of guy who's doing little gifts everywhere. I'm really into it once the season's properly here on December 1st. I don't engage.
Almost.
Anybody else can celebrate all the way up to December 1st, but I don't engage until then. But I'll do little gifts for everybody. I end up allocating most of what would end up being like Christmas stuff that I could use on myself for other people, like in the spirit of the season. But also just because like I've learned over time that that's what I feel best doing in that season. So this year I was like, well, I'd kind of like to buy myself something. And so the thing that I bought myself was this nice new fur coat from Spirit Hoods, they made my purple fur coat, which is great. But like I outgrew, like I got that coat like maybe 8 years ago. Right. And it has like ears on it and stuff. And it's fun. And I like wearing it around. I like pulling it off. I actually got to wear it as Gomez on stage in the Addams Family, which was great because Gomez would wear something gaudy like that. But
absolutely.
But I need one that's not eared, that does not have ears, so that I can have a more like elegant. I'm bringing this out when I go to like my company has a gala in January that we're going to. There's a couple other Christmas and New Year's Eve parties I've been invited to where I'm like, I want to wear something nice. And you know, like I think once again, a younger me might be resistant to the like the status game that you play when you do stuff like that. But then the other thing is like I just like stuff like that, and I feel like I'm communicating. The older I get, the more I realize I'm just kind of communicating who I am by wearing things that I like, because I don't show up with like a full on, you know, like North Face outfit on. Like I'm not showing, but then again, like there are some people who just like they tend to find that they like North Face and it's comfortable, and like that's what they're gonna wear. You know,
you say North Face, but I live in Colorado, and like everybody here, no matter what they're doing, dresses like they're about to go on a 14-mile hike up a mountain.
Oh,
like they could be just like at McDonald's eating a cheeseburger, and they'll be like dressed in like full North Face hiking gear and like hiking pants and hiking boots, and they're not even going to the mountains, and it's just really, really funny to me.
Well, that's the
because
aesthetic,
like I get
right.
Yeah, it is, and I get it, but like it's just really funny because in my head, like it's like when I was in the military and people in the military would like wear like their military gear, like their flak jacket and stuff, like two things that where they should not be wearing like their flak jackets. You know what I mean? It's just like it's so much a part of their identity that they don't realize that it doesn't fit everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I just think it's funny.
Yeah.
From an observation standpoint.
Yeah.
But I agree with your, you know, wearing clothes that you just like. I mean, I'm going through like a big wardrobe rehaul myself, just trying to be like, this is what I want to wear, and I don't care. I just don't care.
Yeah. Yeah. What else has changed? This is like the update podcast. We're just kind of we're going back and forth.
Yeah.
Well, so I'll share this with you because it does change the way that I approach my schedule and things going forward. But I'm single, right? Single man.
I am not.
I know you're not.
Still married.
Which is it's been very interesting. Like, because I remember saying the year before I started dating Brandy, I was like, I don't know if I'd get back into dating again. Like that's not a thing that was appealing to me then, and I don't know how appealing it is to me now. Like I kind of went through that phase once again, early 20s. Like I did a lot of dating, and like that was fun. But I took a whole year off from dating before I was with Brandy. And then coming out of that relationship, because, you know, we're growing in different directions. I'm like, I'm now in this space where I'm like, my parents, you know, I'm 36. I'm a, you know, cisgendered white man in America with parents who are very interested in having another being on this planet with their last name. And so like a lot of the conversation, you know, I went to the party with my parents last night, and you can tell like you can tell like they're looking for me, and then like their friends are finding out, and like, you know, I'm not a bad looking dude. Like, you know, I got options.
It's sitcom style.
Yeah. So
your parents are trying to hook you up, and the friend down the street's trying to hook you up.
Yeah. And like, you know, their friends are like, oh, well, you know, we have some friends, you know, I'm like, oh, all right. Like,
yeah. That's so funny, dude.
Yeah, and
that's amazing.
Part of me is like, thank you, but no thank you right now. I really appreciate it, but I'd much rather just have a nice time, like being around nice people. Like I'd rather just do that for a while.
Yeah.
And part of me is like, one thing that I thought about, because I was like, oh well, I'm gonna talk to Odie about this, and I kind of do want to have it recorded because I had a really like, you know, like I'm sober, like it's
on the record.
What? Oh yeah. Well, not
on
only
the
is it on the
record.
record, but like I had a really good thought, and it's something that I don't think people communicate a lot when they talk about breakups. And it's that like, I don't hate anybody I've ever broken up with. Like even my worst breakup, like I don't hate that person. I don't have enough space in my heart for hatred, but it also,
Agreed.
one thing that I really learned during the process of this breakup was that, like, I can do both at once. And I used to feel conflicted about it. And it's because I think I had too much dialogue around what was happening in my relationships. Like, I had too many people that I confided in. I had too many people that had a vested interest in my relationship around me. I had so there was just too much going on around it. And it kind of drowned out the notion that I can hold both things in the same hand at one time. Like, I can hold a level of like I still love and care about this person in one hand, and I can hold a level of like, but in the interest of my health and the future health of myself and this person and everyone else we have a relationship with, because like there's other relationships that surround a relationship, like I can also hold but I can't be around this person in my hand. You know, like I can do both. And that was a really hard thing to do because, like, obviously I've grown close to the kids, right? And so it's like, as a mature male figure, I had to really sit down and do some hard work of, instead of just acting and reacting, I had to do some hard work of digging inside and going, okay, what is the best possible way to approach this? Because I am, like, part of me will want to, like, say hey to Chloe, Mason, and Caden. And so I ended up reaching out to their dads and just kind of like letting them know, like, hey, you know, I don't live there anymore, but I've always appreciated and respected you. I obviously care very much about your kids. And you know, if you're comfortable with it and if they're comfortable with it, I'd absolutely love to, you know, still see them, you know, however infrequent that may be. And that was it turned out that was the best thing to do, was to just reach out that way and to let them know, hey, you know, the comfort ball needs to be in your guys' court. Like, it has to be you and them both have to be comfortable with it, because I'm not communicating with Brandy right now, right? And that's very intentional. Like, we're breaking up. Like, you need distance and space in order to properly get over someone. Otherwise, you end up, you know, who knows? Like, you open yourself up to that chaos of maybe ending up like both of you bringing out the toxic traits in one another and like creating this cycle that you wrap yourselves up in because you want to be together but you don't at the same time, you know. And I don't want to do that. So I had to chat with the father figures of these kids and reach out. And since then, you know, it's been nice, and I've seen them a couple times. Like, Caden came and saw the show, and I've seen and I've seen Chloe and Mason, ask them how they're doing, like, so that's been good. But I really felt like it was necessary to like get that thought out, because I think a lot of people, when they go through a breakup, they seek confidence within a friend group that has a vested interest in like how their relationship goes. And I did a little bit of that. Like, I obviously talked to people about it, but one thing that I really did that I think made all the difference was I sat down and I kind of just weighed out like the pros and cons list of how I can act moving forward and the most responsible ways to be. And it came down to like 3 simple things that I think they really like, they resonate through everything that you do. They just take different forms. And what it came down to was, and this is a really funny word for it, like the first thing was commitment. Like, am I committed to making healthy decisions here for myself now? And the answer is yes, right? But so then how do you register that commitment? So like, because I'm not committed to this relationship. So being committed to myself now means I have to make healthy decisions for me. Now, it's very easy for a lot of people to go out and like go dating immediately, or like go drinking and partying with their friends and like be like, oh my God, it's over. And like, just, you know, talk shit about the relationship or lament it and cry in the bathroom or whatever you're going to do. You know, like so many people, that's the easy option, right? And if you're committed to something, the better option is always going to be something that's a little harder, right? And I think harder is actually like feeling the emotions without numbing them in any way, right? Drinking, smoking, like whatever you want to do that. Feeling them is better for processing faster, and it helps you to commit to your goal. But holding yourself to that requires, the second thing I was thinking about was like, okay, well now I have to be disciplined about this, right? And like, that's the hardest one, because like we were just talking, like new routine, like this is a brand new routine for me. Like, and not only that, when you go into a brand new routine, especially as someone who's an adult who's been in a relationship, the new routine, you're also as you're establishing it and getting into it, you're processing, if you're being real with yourself, you're processing loss, right? Because your brain wakes up, and although you can have the cognizant forward thinking thought of like, okay, this part is not in my life anymore, your brain still wakes up and is used to waking up next to that person, is used to saying good morning, having random, communications like peppered throughout the day or wherever you're attempting to. And like all of the little things that come along with the routines that you create when there's an us involved. Right. And then when you go back to just me, like being disciplined with the just me part is very hard because your brain is processing that loss. It's processing, oh, this isn't here anymore. So me is different. Like you come out as a different person, and then you kind of have to learn to have a relationship with that new person, that you are. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All right, cool.
No.
I realized you were quiet, and I didn't want to like just keep going.
I just was listening.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
Well, and then the third thing
yeah.
that I came down, like, because it was like, all right, cool, commitment and discipline, and those are everywhere. Like, I coach people on commitment and discipline in the workplace, and I think that made it a little easier for me to think these things out, right? And it's logical, and there's
Definitely.
an emotional side, and it's been hard, and yeah, I've cried a little bit, but like, ultimately, commitment, like, I'm committed to making healthy choices, right? So like, and it's not like I've made 100% healthy choices, right? Like I still need to commit to that. Like nobody's perfect, right? So like for me, I'm committed to that healthy choice, but like I'm like, that means I'm putting in the work to move forward and continue, right? To get back on track. And part of that was taking a break from everything after the musical was done, but then discipline. Yeah. Like, I have to discipline myself now. So getting back on the track that I want to be on, like, I have to think, like, okay, cool. What are my commitments? What are my goals, right? Because goals really involve commitment. So I have to reassess my goals, how they're happening, when they're happening, which is a little easier when you're single and, like, I don't have any kids, So, like, it's a little bit easier. But then coming off of the commitment and discipline, the follow-through on that has to be reassessing what those goals are. So like committing yourself to a healthy decision, creating discipline for yourself, but then you kind of have to look at like, because I had goals for me that was in the relationship. And I think after creating the commitment and the discipline to a healthier version of myself, I then had to ask myself, okay, well, what are the goals that like maybe shift now? Because like I was looking at houses and now I'm like, well, I don't want to look at a fucking house. Yeah. And like I was looking at like what you're doing to progress a relationship this past year, and I'm not looking at that now. Like so like as I'm now looking, I'm like, okay, well, what are the things that come in place of that, and how do I continue to be better as a person? And the end result is, and I think a lot of people don't talk about this either, but like you want to be, as people, we want to be in a relationship. We want to be around people that we care about. We want to be surrounded by love, like, and I don't mean that means like a heterosexual relationship or any specific type of intimate relationship, but like we want relationships. Like I don't know a single person who doesn't, right? Even a recluse is seeking out a better relationship with themselves and nature. It's a relationship. Like, so like moving forward, when you're like establishing this new relationship with yourself, when you're thinking about reassessing like your goals and your commitments and what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, you're relearning a relationship with you, so that, and I'll be honest, in my case, like I'm relearning that relationship with me so I can have a better relationship when I do want to get back into one in the future, like, down the line from now. Yeah. And that's like, it's really hard. Like, yeah. Like it's a lot.
Yeah.
But it, like I said, like it changes everything. Like it changes the way that I'm looking at this podcast. I'm like, all right, well, there's no kids in my life on a Saturday now. So like maybe I start going and meeting with people like in person to interview them. Like, where are the investments that I can make that are going to make me a healthier person? And not a Black Friday purchase, but related to what we were talking about. One of the things I did yesterday that I've never done, because I've always gone for no-gi, was I was like, okay, what is a healthy thing I can do with my time that resonates with what I want to do, which is establish better discipline for myself, have that better relationship. I was showing up to spar yesterday for Muay Thai, And I was like, okay, I'm just going to buy a gi for jujitsu. I have a judo one. I'm just going to buy a jujitsu one right now, because then that forces me, I've put money into it, right? That forces me to then show up to a gi class, not to a no gi class. And I've done jujitsu with gi and I've done it with no gi before, but now I'm invested, right? And that's another thing that like I've been thinking about a lot and processing over this week, that I've been kind of like spending some time with friends and like just kind of taking the morning slow. I woke up at like 7 every day this week, which is nuts.
Yeah, it is for you.
Yeah, I woke up at like 7:30 every day this week and was like, oh, this is cool, but like, all right, we got to get back to the earlier eventually. But putting that money, putting that investment into it, investing like where I'm putting that investment was super, super important. So that like that just happened yesterday, because I was there and I was like, okay, I'm going to commit to a thing that's going to make me better and going to like help me to continue on the path that I've been on. Because they're also, and now I realize this is just the breakup episode, but there's also a part of you, this is the Taylor Swift episode, but there's a part of you that like, there's a part of you that you're working on when you're in a relationship and you're trying to be a better person, right? Because like I was consistently trying to find ways that I could make myself better for myself, but then also for Brandy and for Caden and Chloe and Mason. And like, we're all imperfect little people bouncing off of each other and learning all the time. But I was paying very close attention to it. And there was a part of me that I started kind of fostering and caring about, like this, I didn't know that I wanted to be a nurturer, a provider, a giver, like those things. I didn't know that I had those in me until I had like, God bless them, Brandy and the kids in my life. And now that I'm out of that, I'm like, okay, cool. Where do I continue to foster that relationship? Because that is a very good part of me. It's a part of me that, like people talk about like light and shadow. It's all light, it's all giving. It's all like, and it's a very happy, fulfilled version of myself. So I'm like, all right, how do I continue that? And what was really interesting was then asking that question and going off of this idea of like commitment, discipline, reassessment, investment, like these things that I was lining up for myself and really thinking heavily about, as I then asked myself, how do I continue to foster the parts of me that I was attempting to grow in the relationship while now outside of it? The answer was to have patience, really, and to find where they exist again. Because like if I go and seek them out, I might put myself in a bad situation, right? Like not bad situation, like that sounds very vague. I might make a decision that isn't optimal or in the best interest of personal growth, right?
Yeah. I'm with you.
Yeah. And that kind of rounds it out. Like that's really what I've been processing for like this past week, since we didn't record this past week, but we've been recording the whole time.
Yeah.
But yeah, like processing those things out, and I was like, oh yeah, I do need to talk about this with Odie, because they're gonna want to know like what I'm going through, and what a better spot to do it than to say, hey, here's some really sober thoughts that I have about relationships and your relationship to yourself, and like how to process loss and how to get through that tougher period right after a breakup, because we're really like a month out from when the breakup started, right? But like official breakup date was like 3 weeks ago, kind of, it was rough.
In line with what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's funny because the last couple weeks, actually kind of the last like 3 or 4 weeks, kind of in line with your timeline, I have personally been really focused on like self-reflection.
Okay.
And it's something that I think is really interesting, that I know everybody that's older always says like, as you get older, you start to realize these things. But when you actually start to really realize it and it all starts to really click, I don't feel like I know that like obviously as I get older, as anybody gets older, like in 5 years, I'm going to know so much more than I knew now about how to handle things. But it's in the moment when you realize all that knowledge has finally like formed in your brain into a cohesive thought.
Yeah.
Like, so I think I've mentioned this to you before. I know I've mentioned it to our friend Matt Pfeiffer. Got to get his name drop in here.
Matty.
I've been doing this thing that I originally called like existing time, where I would, because I started going to the gym in the mornings. So now I wake up, like, I'm basically on your old schedule. I'm waking up at like 5 a.m. I'm at the gym, because the gym is literally 2 minutes from my house. I'm at the gym at like 5:30, home at 6:30. And then from 6:30 to about 7, somewhere in that time frame, I lay on the floor in my office and put on like music that I really like. And I just lay there.
Yeah.
And I just exist.
Yeah.
And I let my thoughts go kind of like to happy places. I try not to think about things that will stress me out. And I just exist. But that time has kind of morphed into more of like a self-reflection time. And so now it's more of a time for me to go, okay, here are the things that I am realizing about myself that I don't like, that I need to change, that people around me might not, that I'm doing that maybe, doesn't fit the people I'm around.
Yeah.
Things that I'm acting, ways that I'm behaving that like I want to change. So in that time period, I try to pick one and go, okay, like the one that I'm working on right now is to say less and to listen more, which is why I'm probably so quiet in this podcast so far. But like,
wow,
I really feel like a lot of times, like I listen and I hear people, but I always have something that I like feel like I need to say, right? Like I'm like, I got to get it out. And sometimes in that you listen more to respond instead of listen to like really understand. And I've realized in a lot of my closer relationships and even just in work that like, I say things that just don't need to be said. I start conversations that don't need to be started. I make comments that don't need to be made. And I want to work on, just listening to more and really knowing when is the right time to say and really being aware of what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because the one thing that I've realized a lot as, my third decade of life is coming to a close, like I really, what's the word? I feel like when it comes to listening to people, sometimes people tell you things and they don't really want to hear anything back. They just want to go, hey, like, I'm having this day. They just want to hear somebody go, yeah, like that sucks. But a lot of times I'll be like, but like that sucks. But like this thing, like if you do this, it's like trying to be a problem solver.
That is the most like nascent form of mansplaining that we do in the world.
And it's really frustrating because I can see myself and I realize when I do it, and it's like I hate when people do it to me. Yeah. And that's kind of like another part of it is like I hate when people interrupt me when I'm talking. I hate when people jump to conclusions on what I'm trying to say. I hate when people, try to give me advice when I don't want it. So why do I constantly do it back?
Yeah.
And so it's been just nice in the self-reflection time to like really every morning kind of be like, okay, until I feel like I've really like conquered this, speak less, listen more kind of thing. Yeah. Like we're going to talk about it every morning, me and you, self-conscious person in my brain or me in my brain, like, and then we'll move on to the next thing. But I really feel like as I approach my 30s, which I've said for years, and I'm so ready for my 30s because I feel like I am at the point in my life where in the game, like the board game Life,
yes,
where you have the option to either go to college and get potentially a better career or you just jump straight into it.
Yes.
I feel like I've finally gotten done with that college side route in the game of life. And like, I feel like my life is like actually starting. Like my test run, my trial, the beta version, like all of my teens and 20s were all just like the trial run.
Yeah.
It's such a weird feeling to be like, oh, my life is like really starting now. Like it feels like this is where it like really begins.
Yeah.
And it's a crazy feeling. And I really love that because of the support that I have and just, I don't know, I guess probably the way I was raised, like being able to identify things that I want to work on for myself is something that like is still kind of new to me, but it's just the most like refreshing feeling to go, oh, I had this argument with Goose. Okay, what did I do wrong? What did they do that upset me? How should I approach this when it comes to like what that argument was about? And how can I make sure that like my point is made clearly without being hurtful, and my voice is heard, but I'm also listening to them. Like it's just,
that's good, man.
It's all of that,
yeah.
And it's a crazy feeling and I love it.
Yeah.
and it's really come in handy.
That's a true sign of maturity. One of the things that I learned probably around the same time that you're learning it, but for me that was 6 years ago, is like one of the best things you can do when someone's having a hard time or going through something hard is to just give them a sincere, like, I'm sorry that you have to deal with that. I'm so sorry. Like, and that's
exactly.
It. And like, and not like, just
100%.
let them get it out, and that's one of the things that I've really kept with me. And I think it's made me a better listener in that now I'm not listening for the moment that I can respond, but I'm listening to them. I'm getting that out. And then if they would like something further, they can ask, right? I'm not giving free advice. And if some, so like it's changed the way that a lot of my dynamics work in certain relationships, because when you do that, what you do is you open the door, right? By saying, I'm sorry that you have to deal with that. Here's my empathy for you. I'm sorry, right? Which is a good thing to say in that moment, And some people might misinterpret it because they have a loose definition of the word sorry. But I've also, in the past 6 years, I've also had to explain it. Somebody's like, why are you sorry? And it's like, oh, no, I'm not sorry because I did anything. The feeling that I have is that I'm sorry that you have to deal with that.
It's an empathetic type of feeling.
Yeah, I have empathy for you. And as you explain that to people who maybe don't have that view of it, like, you can see them kind of like going, oh, yeah, okay, they really do actually feel this way. But it opens the door. Oh, sorry.
No.
Okay.
You keep going.
It opens the door and it gives them the opportunity to step through it. So it's an invitation rather than a solicitation of advice.
I like that,
yeah.
and that is that is hand in hand with, like, there's this thing that I didn't. The term is like, it's oppression Olympics, and I've heard it from people before where it's like
oppression Olympics.
Yeah, so
look, now, okay, yeah. Competitive oppressiveness. Yeah, okay.
I hate this. Now, look, I understand that for the most part, I would say that you and I are definitely not in the majority of people that are just trying to be optimistic all the time. That, like, pessimistic is just not, like, in our vocabulary. Like, we just are positive people. And I think that like there are people that are always positive, there's people that are always negative, and then there's the majority of people that, like, are positive in positive situations and negative in negative situations, which is normal, right?
Yeah, it's a bell curve.
Oppression Olympics for me are hard because, like, this is a good example, and I won't, not name any names, but I come from a very, like, rough childhood. Yeah. And I was telling a story, and I'll tell the story here because I'm pretty comfortable telling this one.
Okay.
It was Goose, my partner, and a couple friends, and the subject of mothers came up. Uh-huh. Now, November is a pretty rough month for me because it's my mom's birthday, and, like, a whole bunch of other stuff happened in November. It's not a good month.
Yeah.
So they were bringing up, I don't remember how it came up, but long story short, the story of when I was about 12 years old on Mother's Day, my mom kept giving me wine coolers but told me they were juice because she wanted to know what it was like if I was drunk at 12 years old.
That's weird.
Right? Like, that was my mom's.
Unhealthy. Yeah.
Like, that's like a very snippet of, like,
that's
who
bad.
My mother was. Like, she's a bad person. Yeah. She's a terrible person. I don't care. I'll say it. Like, I'll say it. She's a terrible person, okay. Right? Like, so that story came up, and immediately somebody was like, yeah, well, when I was 10, immediately had a story to trump mine. Yeah. Like, it's somehow worse. And the thing is like, for one, it wasn't worse. And, like, not to judge, but, like, it just wasn't. Like, it wasn't worse than, like, a mom force feeding their kid alcohol at 12 years old because they're curious what their kid's going to be like when they're drunk. Like, that's fucked up.
Yeah.
So, like, when people say something that, like, happened, like, oh, I chipped a nail, it's like, well, I broke my leg. It's like, okay, but let's not take away from other people's pain.
Yeah.
Pain there's a reason that when you go to the doctor, they're like, look at this chart of 0 through 10.
Yeah.
Like, my pain for stubbing my toe could be a 2, and your pain for going through a breakup could be a 10.
Yeah.
But, like, yeah, my pain is definitely less. But, like, that doesn't mean that because I stubbed my toe that you should then jump in and be like, well, I have it worse. It should be, that sucks.
Yeah.
And, like, it comes with, like, if you tell me a story and you're like, yeah, my dad hit me when I was 10 years old for, scratching the truck with my bike or something, and I didn't mean to, my first instinct shouldn't be like, well, you don't even know what it's like to be rough. But just because somebody tells you something bad, the knee-jerk reaction should not be, well, look how bad I have it. Because all that does is show that there's so much bad. And one of my biggest pet peeves with people, and I see you smiling because I think you know where I've said this before.
I
but
know
like,
where you're going. I'm
my
smiling
biggest
for
pet
another
peeve
reason
is like, I was talking to somebody about the doctor.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, like the doctor, and they were like, every time I go to the doctor, they tell me this thing. And I'm like, every time. And long story short, like if you go into a conversation, you immediately like, well, it's gonna be this result and it's gonna be bad.
Yeah.
Then like, how do you exist? And I get that like when you see a situation, you can be like, oh, like this thing could potentially go wrong. Like, I'm going to Vegas, like my flight could potentially get canceled, but I don't know if my flight's going to get canceled. You don't know if the doctor's going to say that thing. You don't know if traffic's going to be bad. You don't know any of this stuff. And like, I'm not saying it's wrong to worry, but my biggest philosophy that I've worked on in 2023 is that it's okay to worry, but if you worry to the point where you can't even handle the situation, then you're fucking yourself.
Yeah.
If you're so stressed out about your flight getting canceled that you can't even function when you get to the airport and you miss your flight anyways, then like what was the point?
Yeah. No. Going with what you were originally saying there about the Oppression Olympics, I think that's not so much. First off, I think Oppression Olympics is a bad term that was invented by somebody who's downplaying people feeling a certain way. Somebody who maybe has a less empathy than others. And that's just from hearing the word. I'm just throwing a guess out there. I could be wrong.
Oh, that's what I was going to say about the Oppression Olympics.
But what were you going to say?
I got sidetracked with my own thought, but
you did.
What I was going to wrap it up with was basically it's really common in Gen Z right now. And I'm not like and younger millennials too.
Yeah.
Like honestly, I would say if you're 30 and like if you're between the ages of like 18 and probably like mid to late 20s, like the Oppression Olympics are real because these are people that obviously are going through like and have a pretty rough road ahead if certain things happen in this country with certain people getting elected as president.
Yeah.
So to some extent, I can understand, especially as a queer person myself, being like, oh, like shit, like if this person gets elected, like they have vocally said that like they're targeting my group.
Yeah.
And that like scares the piss out of me.
Yeah.
But like the election is it's a year away. And it's like, I don't want to worry about that for a year. Like if the yellow-haired monster becomes president, like I want to at least enjoy this last year with the senile old man that is Biden. Like I want to at least enjoy that year. And then when that 4-year trial and tribulation of terribleness comes, I'll handle it. But a lot of people younger, I guess, and I don't want to speak too much on other people's behalf, but like I wonder if it's because they really don't know how bad it can be. And I'm not saying that I know how bad it can be, but like I think it's really easy as a 20-year-old who's in college, not really going through that much hard stuff, to be like, the world is so bad. But like, you really haven't done much yet to experience it. And maybe you have at 20, but like the average 20-year-old hasn't, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, that's a nuanced discussion unto itself.
Yeah,
but
I'm trying to be careful.
But yeah, well, because if you're not, we're gonna open up that whole chat, right? That whole conversation that's there, because there's a lot. That's its own realm of thought and debate and discussion and development and hypothesis. But so going back to what you're saying with the Oppression Olympics, it was really funny you mentioned the type of people who are like, yeah, well, you think that's bad when I was 10. But, I think that person, one thing that I've learned in life is that person is always going to be that person. Like you're going to be like, oh man, I just peed for like a whole minute. They're like, oh, one time I peed for 2. And you're like, all right, dude, cool. Like I was just expressing that my bladder was full and I was surprised by it, but I guess
my bladder's more full.
But I guess you've peed the most, man. You're right. You've peed the most. Like they are just that type of person, right? You're like, I got a flat tire, and they're like, one time I got a flat tire and the wheel well rotted out and my engine was fucked up, and it's like, damn, dude, like, are you okay?
Then.
Like,
yeah, like what's wrong with you?
Everything goes wrong in your life, like.
Especially when people exaggerate and like they're lying. Yeah. I drank 2 cups of coffee and I'm jittery. I had 18 cups of coffee. It's like, okay, all right.
That's just someone who I think has a little bit of like emotion attached to their competitive nature that they're not in control of, right? And that's a very responsible way for me to say that this is a person who is competitive and they're out, like they're basically throwing micro tantrums. Like that's what that is, right? It's them saying it's micro tantrums, micro calls for attention.
Yeah,
and that's what it is at its heart. But like really, I don't know, like that's a generalism, and it could come from a place of actual, mental disturbance. Who knows? But ultimately, I've come across a lot of people who are like that are like one-uppers and stuff, right? And there's a really fun, and I've also been that person in conversations before, because like I'm around people that I want to impress, and I'm like trying to like, like one guy's like, he's like, well, I played football in college, and I'm like, that's cool. I played D1 rugby on a, like it's, you get into the conversation, and it happens a lot in the combat sport world too, like around like Muay Thai and around jiu-jitsu and around judo. It even happened yesterday. There were a couple guys chatting afterward. They're like, well, if you moved, I could have like, that would have been a knockout in a fight. And it's like, I don't engage in that conversation. That bores me to death. Like, I don't care.
Yeah, could'ves and would'ves.
I don't care about that. But like, I'll let people have it because, I've been there. I've had that conversation. But last night specifically, I mentioned in the beginning of this podcast, this is actually a good place to wrap this up. I think this is a really funny story here. So I didn't realize that I was getting everyone's attention with my story, but yesterday a funny thing happened because I showed up to spar because somebody asked me about like sparring and doing stuff like that, and like it was just general. We were all getting to know each other around the island in the kitchen at this house, and somebody started asking me. They're like, oh, cool. So you do like do you do MMA or anything? I'm like, oh no, I just train. Like I just like I've always I was explaining like I've always been a wrestler, yada yada. And I get to the point where I'm explaining to them like I actually haven't done it in like a month because of the show that I just got done doing, but I went back for the first time yesterday. My buddy Donnie sent out a little thing on Facebook that was like, hey, we're sparring at 1:30. And I was like, oh, sparring, cool, at this space where I do judo and jiu-jitsu. I assume it was jiu-jitsu. I was like, okay, yeah, cool, jiu-jitsu sparring. I show up with nothing but stuff for no-gi jiu-jitsu, which is just shorts and a tank top, right? and he's like, oh, it's Muay Thai sparring, right? And I was like, oh, I'm going to take some hits today. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. He goes, do you have a mouth guard? And I was like, no. And then, so I'm like, all right. He's like, and Donnie's like, he's like, all right, nobody hit Kevin in the face, which was pretty funny for him to say right off the rip anyway. But then in judo, there's two Kevins, and I am either called Handsome Kev or Buff Kev, and the other Kev is not in bad shape. Like, first off,
I was gonna say, what's this other guy?
No, he's very much in shape and in his own rights as handsome. It's just like it's like a funny nickname that I now have in the room, right? And so there were two Kevins at Muay Thai yesterday, and I'm the new Kevin. And I go, well, in judo, and these guys know that I do judo because Donnie explained it to him. And I'm like, well, in judo, they call me Handsome Kev. So you guys can just call me Handsome Kev. I'll take that. Like that's the other Kevin. The other Kevin, I shit you not. Like because I was just moving, I was sparring. I like didn't even take. We took like one break, and that was the only break that I took. I was like, I really want to move. I don't care how tired I get. I don't care how sore I get today. I really just want to push this and see how I can do just moving and like getting some hits in and getting hit. The other Kevin, I only sparred with him once, and I shit you not, he came right in and clocked me right in the face. And like not maliciously, but you could tell he was like ready to go. Right. And I was not. And it was really funny because it was square on in the nose. And in my head, I was just like, I kind of silent, like in my own mind, I was like, should I have not said that they should call me Handsome Kev? Like, did I bring this upon myself?
They were targeting you. They're like, we'll show him handsome.
Yeah. So I'm telling this story at, just around with like a group of people last night. And then Pat chimes in, who's really cool dude. And he goes, yeah, on the topic of nicknames. And his story was way better. And I'm going to finish with this because I did not. And here's what I'll throw in before I tell you the story. I felt that moment, what you were talking about. I felt another story loading up in my mind, like, oh, and then I'll top that with this. But I didn't tell it because legitimately the punchline to the story is this good. So Pat, I didn't know this about him until he started talking to me. He's like, well, I sailed with the Paralympic team because he's a sailing coach and consultant, like professional,
not the murderer, right?
Competitive sailing. Huh?
Not the murderer from South Africa.
No.
The Paralympic murderer?
No.
Murdered
The
his
sailing
girlfriend?
team. No, the sailing team.
Okay,
That was a
okay.
sprinter.
Just want to make sure.
No, the sailing
Yeah,
team.
just want to make sure.
He's like, so, he's like, these are pretty open nicknames because everybody's got like, your nickname is like Legless Bob and, stuff like that. Like those are the nicknames. Well, that's what they give each other.
I want that
on
nickname.
these
I want that nickname.
Well, that's what they give each other on these Paralympic teams because they're missing limbs and stuff like that. And he goes,
you can call me Legless Bob from now on.
Right. Well, so he's like, we're down in Brazil. We're training for the Olympics with the Paralympic team. We're doing sailing. We're having a great time. He goes, but we've got these two guys, and they're both named Brad. Both guys are named Brad, right? And so they're both double amputees, like double leg amputees. So they're both legless Brad. So legless Brad is out the window. And one leg Brad is out the window, the usual conventions that they use for each other for these nicknames apparently are not available. But one Brad is, a little more lithe and trim and white. And another Brad is like, when he has his prosthetics on, is like 6'2" and really buff and black. And they ended up giving, like on the crew, I forget how it came about, but like they ended up giving each other the nicknames White Brad and Rye Brad.
Rye?
For white and rye bread. Because rye is brown. And I was like, I think my exact response, because I like could hear where the story was going but didn't want to jump the gun, and as soon as he said white and rye, I was like, oh my God, that is perfect. Like, nothing needs to be added to this conversation, sir. Hats to you. That was a great story.
I've never heard a nickname about bread like that.
I love all the components of that story.
Yeah,
these are people
great.
that are living their best second life, like they're amputees. They're like, they're people who are in the Paralympic Olympics, and they're just like, they're trying to give each other nicknames based on, what they have. And they just didn't have the option. So White and Rye came up, and I was like, man, that's fucking dope.
That's amazing. I love that.
Yep. And that's where we're going to end this episode. Is White and Rye Brad. I hope I meet them someday. I'm like trying to like get in touch with this dude because I'm like, yo, I want to hang out with this guy. He seems fun.
You don't want to do jams?
Oh yeah. What's your jam?
I have one
that
I wanted to
jam?
talk about. And I definitely, in January, I'm going to want to talk about this entire show. And I might try to convince you to watch it. It depends on how you feel about the source material for it.
Yeah.
But on Apple TV, God, gotta stop. We gotta get a plug from them because their shows.
We gotta get sponsored by Apple. They don't need to sponsor anybody. They're operating on word of mouth.
No, they don't sponsor anybody.
They don't need to.
Yeah.
All
right. Monarch: Legacy of Monsters. All right. So
yes,
this show
hit me.
is. So we're gonna go all the way back real quick. 2014, the Godzilla reboot. Gareth Edwards, who did Rogue One, we just talked about the creator not too long ago.
Yes.
That kicked off the Monarch monster universe. So you've got the Godzilla 2014, Kong Skull Island, Godzilla King of the Monsters, and then Godzilla vs. Kong.
Yes.
And then there is a new movie coming out next year. It's Godzilla X Kong, like New Empire.
Yep.
And now look, I've said this before. I am a huge King Kong fan. The 1933 King Kong is what ultimately sparked my interest in film, and then the 1954 North by Northwest. Godzilla, I love Godzilla. I loved the old campy Japan Godzilla. So these two properties are awesome.
Yeah.
Monarch: Legacy of Monsters picks up timeline-wise. You're in two different time periods. You're in the 1950s and you're in 2015.
Okay.
This movie in 2015 is taking place like months after the 2014 Godzilla movie.
Yes.
When he battles the Mutos in San Francisco.
Okay.
The 1950s team follows a bunch of the characters, but as their younger selves. Now, this is why this show is so fucking good. For one, the cast is incredible. You have Kurt Russell and his fucking son, Wyatt Russell, playing the same character at two different ages. Incredible. You have, I cannot remember his name, but if you ever watched Workaholics, it's not the dude with the long hair and it's not Adam Devine, but the other guy.
Yeah.
Do you know, he's the redhead. He's really, you know
he's
who I'm
got the
talking
curly
about, right?
hair. Yeah.
Not the long curly hair, but the shorter hair, but not Adam Devine.
Yes. The taller one.
Yes.
Yes.
He is playing a character that I think, oh my God. So minor spoilers, but you're going to find this out in the first episode, like right away. Do you remember John Goodman's character from Kong Skull Island? The one that was like with the camera and he was like the driving force. He was the Jack Black character, basically.
Yes.
From the Peter Jackson.
Yes.
His name is Bill Randa. We are meeting him in the 1950s. And the whole storyline in the 1950s is him, the old Wyatt Russell, his character's name is Lee, who Kurt Russell plays, the older version, and then this Japanese scientist. That team is what formed and started Monarch.
Oh,
and then
that.
you're seeing what they're doing in the 50s, and then you're seeing how that entire Randa family, John Goodman's family, because there's a whole lineage of him.
Oh, I love that.
Such a good inclusion, dude. Such a good inclusion.
That's so great.
So it jumps between the 50s of them like discovering what these mutos are, discovering Godzilla, like figuring out that this stuff exists.
Okay.
And then jumping to 2015, and you're seeing like, oh, this mystery, like if you've seen the movies, not only does it tie through all of the movies chronologically, like Kong Skull Island and then into Godzilla, like however they would take place like in the universe, timeline wise, but you're also seeing like the in-between of the first Godzilla movie and then where we know things go in Godzilla versus Kong. So I am 3 episodes in. Yeah, there's 3 episodes because they dropped 2 at once and then the third one just came out. And I'm not usually a big fan of storytelling where it's like, you're in this time period, now you're in this time period. You're in this time period, now you're in this time period.
The Witcher.
This, every time, oh God, I didn't even get past it. That's another story. I can't do that. I literally, like, every time it would switch time periods, I'd be like, no, go back. But then I'd be in that time period, and then it would switch back. And I'd be like, no, go back. Like, every time period it was in, I was like, don't leave.
That's just good writing.
I think it's incredible. Good. Like, I might be a little biased. It's definitely not perfect. There are some things where I'm like, nah, that doesn't make any sense. But I'm like, I don't give a fuck. It's still good. Mm-hmm. I really love it. It's making me want to watch all of the monster movies that tie into it. So I think I'm going to do that now. But if you're interested in it, even if, and I actually encourage this, if you haven't seen any of the monster movies, I would encourage you to only watch Kong Skull Island and Godzilla 2014.
Okay.
And then watch this show and see how it goes.
Cool.
That goes for anybody. But that's my jam, and I love it. You can't tell.
No, I can. Yet again, Apple TV just crushing it. So my jam, and I'm only going to give you a music jam because actually when we record the second time today to do a double episode for all the people who've been listening for the past month, I want to talk more about like what we've been watching, what we've been, how we've been engaging with media, stuff like that. Like, I think that would be a good conversation. Obviously this was the relationship cast. But I found, so once again, my consistent raising and tailoring of the musical algorithm that is Spotify, which I think they keep updating it and trying to like box people into listening to certain things. Not that that's the goal, but like the goal is to get people using the app more, right? And so like now there's audiobooks on there, which I've been listening to. I love them. But like every now and then just the UI changes on the app, and I notice that it's giving me less and less options, and I'm not the person who that's built for. So the tailoring of that algorithm and Instagram, where I'm consistently like going back through and deleting things that I haven't liked a post from in a while, and like really like I'm really customizing and curating how I experience social media now, which has been awesome in general. But it's also throwing me things because of what I'm liking, because I'm very intentional with what I like and what I like and save, right? Because liking and saving sends the signal that they'll put more of that in front of you, right? So the Instagram somehow put in front of me this artist who only has like 24,000 listeners, doesn't even have 100,000 plays on any of her songs yet. Oh wait, this finally got 100,000 plays like yesterday. Cool. There's this artist named Yeems, Yeemz, and the video that I saw, and the reason I even turned the sound on it as I was like, just checking Instagram. She's got a cello and it's very obviously a cello. Like if you've ever seen a cello before, like the body is big and the neck is long, and there's these thick strings on them, and she's plucking it. And she's singing this song called Wondering Why. And she just has this like beautiful aura about her. And you could tell it's a very emotionally driven song. And it's about like a person that she's thankful for having in her life, that she's intimate with. And like she's saying like, you do all these wonderful things, and then I lay awake wondering why you do them. And it's just like, it's really cute and pretty. And I've listened to that song probably like 10 times in the past, like, day. And just been like, wow, this is really nice. Like, and you can tell like she wrote it and recorded it. I don't know if she recorded it herself, but you can tell she wrote it herself. Like it's very from the heart, very raw. And I just love that she's plucking a cello while singing over it. It's so beautiful and simple and everything that I love in this time of year.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. You just made me remember. YEEMZ. I'm gonna look her up though.
I'll send it to you.
I know we've talked about T-Pain before.
Oh, I love T-Pain.
He has a new song.
Yep.
With Snoop Dogg.
Great.
Called That's How We Ballin'.
I love it.
And look, the message, not my favorite. It's all about like just throwing money at strippers, take your clothes off. Come on. But
that's what
man,
T-Pain
does
does.
It get me in the mood. But man, does that song get me in the mood to just like fucking like in my mind, like I hear that song and like I'm putting a suit, I'm walking the red carpet, and I'm just like, like that song is such a good, like, get ready for the day.
Yeah. T-Pain is an outlier in my musical preferences because I don't like that much auto-tune, but I love me some T-Pain.
His new stuff, though, I will say, and I've said this before, his voice without auto-tune is so beautiful.
It's so good.
Like,
why did he even do it? Like
this new song, he doesn't use auto-tune, which is why I was like, oh.
Like, I get that it was just, like, the sound of the time, right? Like, that was the thing to do, right? But why did he even do that? Like he could have just sang. It would have been beautiful. Actually, the song Sprung, which was one of his first hits. I think Sprung, actually, if you go back, Sprung was his first hit. But the song Sprung, you can tell there's parts of it that are more auto-tuned and parts that are less. Parts that are just like pitch corrected, right? Which everybody does because that's a whole other conversation. Yeah. But like there are parts that are just pitch corrected and parts that are auto-tuned, and I love that song. Like when that was the jam that made me go, okay, I like T-Pain, right? I like this guy. And that was on his first album. Like so good. Yeah. Yeah, man. Oh dude,
I'm on a boat.
Here I like that song too. Here's a funny little bit from last night too that popped up a few times. Like I'm very lucky. My mom showed me music all the time, like with or without trying. She always had music playing. She was very much like, I'm very much like my mom in that when I'm seeking out music that's new, if something catches my ear, I'll look into it, and last night songs kept coming on that I was out at like a party with like people who are probably, I would say the average age of people at the party last night was like 54, right? Like that's the kind of party I was at, right? So like the youngest people there were me and Pat at 36. Like so nice. Yeah, so but like songs kept coming on, like, Ain't That a Kick in the Head came on, and I was like, oh cool, Dean Martin, nice. Somebody was like, isn't that Frank Sinatra? I was like, no, this one's Dean. And like, then like these old people are like double checking. They're like, oh nice, he knew it, like the first lick of September by Earth, Wind and Fire comes on. I'm like, oh, September. Like before it's even been 2 seconds in the song. They're like, how do you know all this? And then right as I was leaving, the guy who owns the place, John, one of the nicest, most intelligent people I think I've ever had the pleasure of like sitting around and chatting with for even a short amount of time. This song comes on, and it's the Gypsy Kings, and they're like, I forget what country they're from, but they definitely speak a form of like Portuguese or Spanish, and they use words like cantare, which is like sing, right? They might even be Mediterranean. Anyway, the Gypsy Kings come on, and my mom, thank God, she introduced me to the Gypsy Kings, and I immediately knew it, and it's probably the most I danced all night, was like really grooving to the Gypsy Kings, because they just have this beautiful like it's not flamenco, it's very like, it's gypsy.
I know the Gypsy Kings.
Yeah. So I'm listening.
Dude,
to that.
I should send you. Oh, sorry.
No, well, and then John's like, John's trying to like get my dad and my stepmom to listen to it, and they're not as musically versed as the rest of my family. Like they're very, my dad's AC/DC, my stepmom loves John Cougar Mellencamp. You know, like they're very classic American taste in music, which is great. That's fine. I love them to death. They're great. But like but John's like trying to get them into it, and then he looks over at me, and I'm singing the song. He's like, "Oh my God, he knows the Gypsy Kings. Why do you guys not know this?" Like,
yeah,
but yeah,
nice.
Yeah, what were you gonna say?
I should send you my playlist of music because I have like 150 songs on a playlist of like the music I grew up with, and it's all stuff before like 1990.
Oh hell yeah, dude!
It's all before I was even like thought of.
Sometimes
like before I even could listen,
dude. I mean, there's nothing better than listening to there's nothing better than listening to people who are definitely the generation before you, trying to figure out what Bruno Mars or Ed Sheeran song to play next. Like that was probably one of the most entertaining things, was sitting out by the fire with Pat and like just hear like the song skipping around, and you can tell the wives are like yelling at the husbands like what song they want to hear. And so like, you know, It's Raining Men starts 5 different times, like starts but doesn't get all the way through, and then like just Bruno Mars comes on.
Love
and
it.
Then
yeah. Wonderful.
All right. That's it.
Yeah.
That's the end.
That's it.
Good job. Be committed to yourself. Be disciplined. You know. Make sure that you're forward thinking. Be happy and healthy.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. All right. Talk to you soon, man.